lions go inside there, something's going on. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, everyone seems to be out, but they're looking in the direction from where the lions came yesterday, but of course there are no lions around here now. Anyway, the only bird that you could hear there was a drongo calling half-heartedly in the tree above. Sorry, Brian. Now, Mr. Macman, you can see that this den is on a termite mound. So it's an enormous termite mound. In fact, probably one of the biggest I've seen here, Brian. I mean, it really is quite extensive. And Mr. Macman, you want to know if it would ever be flooded, even if in the heaviest rains. Mr. Macman, I don't think it would be flooded, no. I think it would be almost impossible unless we had a deluge of a sort of Noah proportions. I don't think this would ever flood. We're away from the drainage area, sort of above the high water mark, and the termite mound entrances themselves are way off the ground. So no, I don't think there'd ever be a chance that this den could be flooded. They're all quite hot and bothered, I think. So although it hasn't been that hot today, definitely the temperature has hardly dropped at all as the sun's gone down. They are such magnificent, magnificent creatures, these. And I know a lot of you have suggested, well, why don't you put a camera up at the den so that we can watch permanently? It would be an idea, except that they keep moving their dens, of course. This one's been around for now almost 8 weeks. But they do keep moving their dens, and so to put up a camera with the requisite wiring, etc., it's not always that easy to then take it down and move it again. So we just have to come here every day to have a look and see. Everything very soporific here. Clearly they've had a very busy time of it. Much playing. But every time the wind blows, every time a little breeze blows over the top, the adults lift their noses. And of course they will always smell something different. On every little piece of wind that comes through, there'll be a different smell for them. Our noses don't pick up anything. But a hyena's incredibly sensitive nose will always pick up some kind of a scent. Anyway, I think we'll probably sit here for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll head off and see what else we can find. And interestingly, the green above there is becoming slightly more sparse as the drought continues. Now, Bill, a wonderful question about male hyenas, and do they ever hang around the den, or do they just kind of disappear? Bill, I've seen 2 or 3 males at this den. Not often, though. The first male I saw, not at this den, but at this clan's den, was a very injured one. We think he's quite a dominant male, too. We think he may even be the father of some of these cubs. And he seemed to come back to the den to seek protection. He was badly injured, and 2 days later, he seemed to be fine. He looked to be on death's door when we saw him. He came almost back to the den to seek protection, I think. And then I've seen 1 or 2 come in and out. But no, they don't spend any time here if they can avoid it. They'll normally spend time in groups of 2s or 1, and they'll forage on their own. And then they're the ones that kind of will go off, and they cross the clan boundary and go and seek out things to eat for the whole clan. And they kind of are almost like the sort of soldiers of the clan. And they go off on these sort of scouting forays, if you like. It's also them, of course, that will leave their natal clan. The thing about male hyenas I think is most fascinating is that what happens to them is that if they will inherit their mother's, they will definitely inherit their mother's status within the male hierarchy. So although just about every female will outrank every male, the males do inherit their mother's status. So if they're born to the matriarch, they'll be a high-ranking male. But that means that their chances of mating are very small. And if they then leave their natal clan and go off to another clan, they will lose all of their status, which means that they will be hungry for quite a lot of the time. But it does mean that they will be able to mate. So hyena females are much more likely to mate with low-ranking immigrants than they are with high-ranking members of the same clan, which I think is fascinating. Look, isn't that sweet? Wonderful question here. Obviously, Charlotte, you were watching yesterday from Port Elizabeth, and we're just going to watch a quick greeting ceremony here. This is how hyenas greet each other. Just listen. It wasn't very extensive greeting, just that grunting. Oh. And then that sort of genital sniffing. And that's totally normal. That's exactly how they do it. Madam, that's the matriarch. She's off on the hunting foray. See what she can find to eat. And there too goes Pretty with her. Good luck, girls. Oh, she's coming right close by. There they go. Now they're alone. Oh no, they've got one adult, well, one semi-adult. Look how close to this little thing is. It's a little male. This is the little male D-twin. That's my shoulder. So he's only about 3 feet from us. Hi. This is so special. Now, Charlotte, he's making his way back to the den. And your question was, and it's sorry, Brian, it's a very good one. Do they go back into the den, into the hole, because of the signal that an adult gives them, or is it totally instinctual? Charlotte, I think you can see from the fact that they're all out of the den here, you can see that it must be entirely instinctual. They don't get an instruction. If they feel slightly threatened, if I was to clap my hands twice, they'd disappear down into the hole. It's their first thing that they do when they smell something odd, when something strange happens around the den. Okay, we're going to stay here for a little bit longer. In the meantime, let's head across to Scott. He's got some far larger animals. They've just had their drink.
Well, what a wonderful scene this is, as a parade of elephants march off whilst casually dust bathing themselves as they go. They have just finished drinking at Sydney's waterhole, so we have sadly not timed this one very well. There's still one probably young bull lurking at the back there. Our timing was also no good to catch the brief glimpse of the Nkuhuma Pride crossing our northern boundary, which they did while we were away, searching for other action. Yeah, that is a bull, and he too is enjoying the dust bathing. There's a hippo on the far left of the waterhole that I'd also like to show you before it disappears. It's almost completely out the water. Yeah, it is now completely out the water. And it's a rare sight. We don't get to see them out of the water too often. They have got the most bizarre anatomies, very, very short legs, but don't be fooled by what looks like quite a sluggish body. They can move at incredibly fast speeds and are immensely powerful animals. It's heading out the water a little bit earlier than they naturally would during the summer months because of the desperate state of affairs that we are in here regarding the drought. There's not much of food, and hippos are nocturnal grazers. They need to feed on about 40 kilograms of grass every evening, and at the moment they have to start that search early in order to acquire the necessary amounts of food, and even then they're probably not getting as much as they need at the moment. It's really, really tough times, especially for animals like the hippos that don't have a very wide diet. It pays not to be fussy out here. Oh, look at those elephants, just clouds of dust puffing up. Beautiful. Look at that. It's like a steam train chugging off into the distance. Yeah. Look at this. Oh, yes, they are making the most of the dry and dusty conditions. And elephants do enjoy dust bathing. I mean, I don't know how much it can actually help them. It's hardly going to prevent parasites from latching onto their skin, but it may have a somewhat cooling effect, almost like kind of like going into a health spa and getting pampered. It must just feel, if they dig the cooler sand from below the top layer of hot sand that would have been baked by the sun, it can have somewhat of a cooling effect. Of course, if they had have wet their bodies completely, which it doesn't look like those ones did, it would have a sticking effect onto that moist skin, but that is not the case. Good, we're gonna probably carry on now. I know the Hyena Den is active, but not entirely active, if that makes any sense. They're there, but they're not doing a huge amount, and hopefully that changes before it does get too dark. So why don't you hurry back there, and we're going to continue our search for anything else.
Right, everybody, I'm afraid we're going to have one last look at these hyenas, and then we're going to move out, because it's got very dark here indeed, and I don't want to put pressure on them. They're about to go to sleep. Their bedtime story has been read to them while you were away. The little nursemaid there told them a story about Thomas the tank engine, who transported some hyenas once. I'm now really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, and so let us leave quietly. You can keep asking questions, of course, as we go. Now, Brian, you're in Toronto, not on the back of the car, and you want to know if a leopard would do what the... Oh, hang on. There's something walking there. It is a hyena. It's one of the returning females, sorry. Brian, I thought it might actually be the leopard that you were asking about. You said, would a leopard prowl around here in the same way that a hyena would, at least that a lion would? And the answer, Brian, is yes, they probably would, but they'd be a lot more careful. If there were adults here, they wouldn't come anywhere near it. They can't take the risk of having a fight with an adult, so they wouldn't do that. But leopards are renowned for eating other predators, and especially canine.